The final break does not begin with shouting. It begins when the heart stops reaching. Empaths do not usually walk away because of one bad day, one careless word, or one painful mistake. They are often the ones who try to understand the storm inside another person. They notice the sadness behind anger. They hear the fear behind silence. They feel the wound behind cold behavior. This is why people often believe an empath will forgive anything. But that belief is wrong. Deep understanding is not the same as endless permission. An empath can forgive confusion. They can forgive distance. They can forgive emotional immaturity for a while. They can even forgive pain when they believe the other person did not understand the damage they caused. But there is one line that changes everything. It is crossed when a person knows they are hurting. The empath sees the pain in their eyes, hears the hurt in their voice, watches them become smaller, quieter, and more careful, and still continues. Then, after causing the damage again and again, that person expects the empath's kindness to clean the wound and make everything normal. That is where the point of no return begins. It is not always anger, it is not revenge, it is not a dramatic ending, it is a quiet inner shift. The apology no longer reaches the same place. The excuses no longer sound like truth. The empath may still listen, but their soul has already stepped back. This is what many people do not understand. Empaths may stay silent for a long time, but silence does not always mean forgiveness. Sometimes silence means they are observing the pattern. Sometimes silence means they are tired of explaining pain to someone who only listens when there are consequences. In this video, you will learn what empaths never truly forgive, why repeated hurt affects them so deeply, and why their final goodbye often feels calm instead of emotional. You will understand why they give so many chances, why they keep hoping for change, and why one day that hope suddenly disappears. You will also learn the hidden reason empaths stop fighting for connection. It is not because they stopped caring, it is because caring became too expensive. When a person keeps turning their compassion into a weakness, the empath eventually sees the truth. Pain can explain behavior, but it cannot excuse cruelty. A hard past can create wounds, but it does not give anyone the right to keep wounding others. So stay with this video till the end, because the final part explains why an empath may forgive in peace, yet never return with the same love again. Welcome to our channel. If you want calm, deep, and honest psychology videos about empaths, emotional healing, and self-respect, subscribe now and let's begin. An empath does not usually close their heart because of one mistake. They understand that people get tired, people get scared, people speak from stress, people make choices they later regret. An empath can see the human side of a person even in moments when that person is not acting with care. This is why they often give more chances than most people would give. They do not rush to judge. They do not want to punish someone for being imperfect. If someone hurts them once and then comes back with honesty, real regret, and changed behavior, an empath can soften. They can listen. They can make space for repair. But what slowly breaks them is not the mistake itself. It is the return of the same pain again and again. It is the same disrespect coming back with a different reason. It is the same neglect wearing a new excuse. It is the same wound being opened by the same hands that promise to be gentle. At first, the empath tries to believe the apology. They want to believe it because believing it protects the bond. It gives them hope. It allows them to stay connected to the version of that person they still love. But every repeated pattern teaches the empath a quiet lesson. It teaches them that words are easy when someone is afraid of losing access. It teaches them that regret can be real in the moment but still not strong enough to create change. It teaches them that an apology without transformation is only a pause between two hurts. This is where forgiveness begins to change shape. In the beginning, forgiveness feels like love. It feels like patience. It feels like giving someone room to grow. But after the same pain keeps returning, forgiveness starts to feel heavy. It starts to feel like self-betrayal. The empath begins to notice that every time they forgive, they are the one doing the emotional work. They are the one calming their own pain. They are the one trying to understand the other person. They are the one lowering their voice, making sense of the behavior, and finding another reason to stay. Meanwhile, the other person may only learn that the empath will always come back. That is the danger of repeated patterns. They do not just hurt the empath. They train the other person to believe there are no real consequences. The empath may forgive the first broken promise. They may forgive the second. They may forgive the third because they see fear, trauma, pressure, or confusion behind it. But slowly the body starts keeping score. The mind may say, give them one more chance, but the body feels tired before the conversation even begins. The heart may still care, but it no longer relaxes. The empath starts preparing for pain instead of expecting peace. That is when something deep begins to shift. They no longer hear an apology as comfort. They hear it as a pattern. They no longer feel safe when the other person becomes sweet after hurting them. They wonder how long the sweetness will last this time. This is not coldness. This is emotional learning. When someone repeats the same wound, the empath starts to understand that the problem is not lack of explanation. They have already explained. They have already cried. They have already gone quiet. They have already tried to say it in softer words. The issue is not that the other person does not understand. The issue is that understanding did not lead to respect. That realization is painful because empaths often believe that if they can explain their pain clearly enough, the person who loves them will stop causing it. But repeated disrespect proves that clarity is not always the missing piece. Sometimes the missing piece is accountability. Sometimes the missing piece is emotional maturity. Sometimes the missing piece is the other person's willingness to lose a habit that benefits them. And when the empath sees that, their forgiveness no longer feels open. It becomes guarded. They may still care, but they stop offering the same warmth. They may still respond, but they no longer reach first. They may still smile, but the smile does not carry the same trust. This is how emotional exhaustion begins. Not from one fight, not from one disappointment, but from the slow draining of hope. Each repeated pattern takes a small piece of the empath's belief in the relationship. Each empty apology makes the next apology weaker. Each moment of disrespect makes their nervous system more alert. The empath may not announce this change, they may not even fully understand it at first, but inside they begin to detach from the cycle. They start asking a harder question. Not, can I forgive this? But, what is forgiveness costing me now? And once an empath begins asking that question, the relationship has entered a different place. Because now forgiveness is no longer about love alone. It is about survival, peace, and self-respect. The deepest wound for an empath is not always the first hurt. It is what happens after the hurt is spoken. It is the moment they gather the courage to say, this affected me, and the other person makes them feel foolish for feeling it. That is where the pain becomes deeper than the action itself. A harsh word can hurt, but being told it was not harsh can confuse the heart. Being ignored can hurt, but being told that needing care is dramatic can make the empath question their own needs. Being betrayed can break trust, but being treated as if the betrayal was not serious can make the empath question their own sense of reality. This is why denial is so damaging. When an empath brings up pain, they are usually not trying to attack. They are trying to repair. They are trying to keep the connection alive by showing where it is bleeding. But if the other person responds with blame, mockery, coldness, or dismissal, the empath is left carrying two injuries. The first injury is what happened. The second injury is being abandoned in the pain of it. Many empaths are already careful with their words. They soften their tone. They choose the right time. They try not to sound angry. They may even apologize before explaining why they are hurt. They do this because they do not want to make the other person feel attacked. But when even gentle honesty is treated like a problem, the empath begins to shrink. They start editing their emotions before expressing them. They ask themselves if they are being unfair. They wonder if their heart is too sensitive. They begin to measure their pain against the other person's reaction instead of trusting what they feel. This is one of the quietest forms of emotional damage. The empath becomes less connected to their own inner truth. They may start thinking, maybe it was not that bad. Maybe I am asking for too much. Maybe I should let it go. Maybe I need to be stronger. But over time, the body does not forget what the mind tries to excuse. The body remembers the tightness before speaking. It remembers the fear of being dismissed. It remembers the sadness of needing comfort and receiving criticism. The empath may try to keep peace by staying silent, but silence does not remove pain, it only stores it. And stored pain becomes distance. This is where the relationship begins to lose its emotional safety. The empath may still be present, but they no longer feel free. They may still talk, but they avoid certain truths. They may still love, but the love becomes careful. And careful love is not the same as safe love. When someone repeatedly denies an empath's pain, the empath starts to feel alone even while being with them. That loneliness is heavy because it tells them that their emotions are not welcome unless they are convenient. Their joy may be accepted. Their support may be accepted. Their patience may be accepted, but their hurt becomes too much, their boundaries become too much, their need for respect becomes too much. Slowly, the empath sees the hidden rule in the relationship. They are allowed to feel as long as their feelings do not require the other person to change. They are allowed to speak as long as their words do not create accountability. They are allowed to forgive as long as they do not ask why the same wound keeps returning. This realization hurts deeply because empaths often enter relationships with a strong belief in emotional honesty. They believe pain should be met with care. They believe love should make space for repair. They believe that when someone is told, "You hurt me," the natural response should be concern, not defense. So when their pain is minimized, a quiet battle begins inside them. One part still wants to understand the other person. Another part is beginning to understand themselves. That second part grows slowly. It starts as a small inner voice saying, "This does hurt." Then it becomes clearer. This is not too much. This is not weakness. This is not drama. This is basic respect. That moment matters. It is the moment the empath starts returning to their own reality. They may not leave right away. They may not change everything overnight, but something becomes harder to manipulate. Once the empath accepts that their pain is real, the old excuses lose power. The other person may still deny it. They may still act confused. They may still try to make the empath feel guilty for speaking, but the empath no longer collapses as easily. They begin to see that a person who loves access to their compassion but rejects responsibility for their pain is not offering safety. They begin to understand that being understood is not a luxury. It is part of emotional respect. And when someone keeps making them doubt the truth of their own hurt, the empath eventually stops asking that person to validate it. They start validating it themselves. That is when the bond begins to change in a way the other person may not notice at first. The empath becomes quieter, but not because they are weak. They become quieter because they are done placing their pain in hands that keep dropping it. Empaths often try to understand people from the inside. They do not only look at behavior, they look for the wound behind the behavior. They ask what made someone this guarded, this angry, this distant, this controlling, or this hard to reach. This can be a beautiful gift when it is connected to wisdom. It allows them to offer patience where others may offer judgment. It allows them to see pain in places where others only see attitude. But this same gift becomes dangerous when it is given to someone who has no desire to change. A person who does not want accountability can turn the empath's compassion into a shelter for their behavior. The empath may explain the harm away before the other person even has to take responsibility. They may think they are hurt, they are under pressure, they had a hard childhood. They have trust issues. They do not know how to love properly. They are scared of being vulnerable. And sometimes those things may be true. People do carry pain. People do repeat old survival patterns. People do hurt others from places they have not healed. But there is a line many empaths learn late. Pain may explain behavior, but it does not excuse cruelty. A wound can help explain why someone reacts badly, but it does not give them the right to keep cutting others with it. This is the lesson that changes an empath. They may spend a long time trying to love someone into awareness. They may believe that if they are patient enough, gentle enough, loyal enough, and understanding enough, the other person will finally soften. They may believe love can reach the place inside that person where change begins. But love cannot do the work that another person refuses to do. Compassion cannot become a replacement for accountability. Understanding cannot keep absorbing disrespect without turning into exhaustion. When toxic people sense that an empath wants to understand them, they may begin to use that understanding as protection. Every harmful action comes with a story. Every broken promise comes with a reason. Every cruel moment is followed by a wound from the past. The empath listens because they care. They feel the story. They feel the pain. They may even forget their own hurt for a moment because the other person's pain becomes louder in the room. This is how the balance shifts. The empath comes in wounded, but ends up comforting the person who wounded them. They come in needing repair but leave feeling guilty for asking. They come in wanting accountability but leave thinking they should be more patient. This is not healthy compassion, this is emotional reversal. And it drains the empath because their pain never gets a place to land. They keep making room for someone else's wounds while their own wounds stay untreated. Over time, resentment may grow, but the empath may feel guilty for feeling it. They may think resentment makes them unkind. But often resentment is the part of the empath that knows something unfair is happening. It is the inner self saying, I am tired of disappearing inside another person's pain. I am tired of explaining away behavior that keeps damaging me. I am tired of being understanding while no one tries to understand what this is doing to me. This is where the empath starts to wake up. They begin to see that compassion without boundaries can become self-abandonment. They begin to see that understanding someone does not mean staying available for their harm. They begin to see that a person's past may deserve compassion, but their present behavior still needs accountability. That realization can feel harsh at first because empaths do not like becoming firm. They may worry that boundaries make them cold. They may fear that saying no means they are giving up on someone. But boundaries are not the absence of love. Boundaries are the protection of what love should never destroy. When an empath finally understands this, their compassion becomes cleaner. It stops being an open door for disrespect. It becomes something they offer from strength, not from fear. They can care about someone's pain without carrying it. They can understand someone's history without being controlled by it. They can wish someone healing without staying close enough to keep being hurt. This is a powerful shift because toxic people often depend on the empath confusing compassion with access. They expect the empath to keep opening the door because they understand the reasons behind the harm. But when the empath stops confusing explanation with excuse, the old pattern loses its power. The other person may try to bring up their pain again. They may try to make the empath feel guilty for becoming distant. They may accuse the empath of changing. But the truth is, the empath has not lost compassion, they have gained clarity. They still see the wound, but now they also see the weapon. They still understand the pain, but now they understand their own pain too. And once both truths exist at the same time, the empath can no longer keep sacrificing themselves to protect someone from the consequences of their own behavior. The point of no return for an empath is often misunderstood because it does not always look dramatic. People expect a big reaction. They expect tears, anger, long messages, emotional pleading, or one final argument. But when an empath is truly done, the shift is usually quiet. It may look like calmness from the outside, but inside something has disconnected. This does not happen all at once. It happens after many small moments where the empath realizes their words are not reaching the other person. They explain once, they explain again, they try softer language. They try silence, they try patience, they try giving space, they try being more loving, they try being less demanding. They try understanding the other person from every angle. But eventually they notice that nothing changes except their own level of exhaustion. That is when the final shift begins. The empath stops trying to prove their heart. They stop trying to convince someone that their intentions are pure. They stop explaining why a certain behavior hurts. They stop asking for the same care in different words. This silence can confuse the other person because they may think the problem is past. They may think the empath has accepted things. They may think peace has returned. But often, the silence means the empath has stopped placing hope in the conversation. They no longer expect the other person to finally understand. They have accepted what the person keeps showing them. This kind of acceptance is not soft. It is not warm. It is not the same as forgiveness. It is the mind finally agreeing with the body. The body has been warning the empath for a long time. It warned them through tension, it warned them through tiredness, it warned them through the heavy feeling before every talk. It warned them through the loss of excitement when the person reached out. It warned them through the strange peace that came when there was distance. The empath may ignore these signals because their heart wants the bond to survive. But at the point of no return, they can no longer ignore them. They see the pattern clearly, they see the cost clearly. They see that staying connected in the old way means continuing to betray themselves. And once they see that, they become still. This stillness is powerful because it no longer asks for permission. It does not beg, it does not chase, it does not demand a final answer from the other person. It simply knows. The empath may still speak kindly, they may still respond with respect, they may still avoid cruelty, but their energy is different. The warmth has pulled back, the openness has closed. The deep emotional availability that once made the relationship feel alive is no longer freely offered. The other person may feel this before they can explain it. They may notice the empath is not reacting the same way. The old tactics do not work as quickly. Guilt does not pull them back the same way. Apologies do not melt them the same way. Emotional distance does not make them panic the same way. This is because the empath has moved from emotional hope to emotional evidence. They are no longer building the relationship on who the person could become. They are responding to who the person keeps choosing to be. That shift is the real point of no return. It is not the end of love in 1 second. It is the end of denial. It is the end of trying to turn small moments of kindness into proof that the whole pattern is safe. It is the end of making excuses for behavior that continues to damage trust. The empath may grieve this quietly. They may miss the good moments. They may remember the soft parts of the person. They may feel sadness for what could have been, but grief does not always mean they want to return. Sometimes grief means they are letting go of the version of the relationship they fought so hard to believe in. This is why the point of no return feels so final. By the time the empath becomes calm, they have already cried in private. They have already argued with themselves. They have already tried to stay. They have already given chances that no one saw. Their calmness is not proof that it did not matter. Their calmness is proof that the emotional storm has passed through them so many times that it finally burned itself out. Now what remains is clarity. And clarity can look cold to someone who benefited from confusion. The empath is no longer asking to be chosen with care. They are choosing themselves with care. They are no longer trying to make the other person understand the damage. They are trusting what the damage has already taught them. This is why their final break can feel sudden to the person who ignored the warnings. But for the empath, it is not sudden at all. It is the last step in a long, private process of waking up. When an empath forgives, many people assume everything will return to the way it was. They think forgiveness means the door opens again. They think a calm voice means trust has been restored. They think the absence of anger means the relationship has been repaired. But forgiveness and access are not the same thing. This is one of the most important lessons in an empath's life. An empath can let go of hate and still choose distance. They can release the need to punish someone and still refuse to give that person the same place in their heart. They can wish someone peace and still understand that closeness would cost them their own. Forgiveness is about what the empath decides to stop carrying inside. Access is about what they allow near their life. Those are two different doors. One can close while the other remains locked. This is why empaths may seem confusing after they reach their limit. They may not be bitter. They may not shout. They may not speak badly. They may even show kindness in small ways, but the old emotional closeness is gone. The other person may feel this and become unsettled. They may wonder why the empath is no longer warm in the same way. They may wonder why the empath does not share as much, does not reach as much, does not explain as much, and does not respond with the same depth. The answer is simple but painful. The empath may have forgiven the event, but they have not forgotten what the event revealed. They now know what the other person is capable of doing with their trust. They now know how easily their kindness can be taken for granted. They now know that their softness was not always protected. Once an empath learns this, they cannot unlearn it. The relationship may continue in some form, but the inner bond changes. The empath becomes more careful with emotional access. They may still listen, but they do not absorb everything. They may still care, but they do not carry everything. They may still answer, but they do not open the deepest parts of themselves. This is not punishment, it is protection. The old version of the empath believed closeness meant giving fully. The new version understands that love without safety becomes pain. This shift often happens after the empath realizes that their ability to forgive was being mistaken for weakness. Their patience was being treated like permission. Their silence was being treated like acceptance. Their loyalty was being treated like something that did not need to be earned. Once they see that, they return differently. They may become more peaceful, but less available, more kind, but less open, more understanding but less willing to explain, more loving in their heart but more selective with their presence. This can feel like a loss to the other person because the empath's energy is often what kept the connection feeling alive. The empath was the one bringing warmth after tension. The empath was the one creating softness after conflict. The empath was the one making room for repair. When that energy is withdrawn, the relationship may feel empty, but the emptiness was always there. The empath was simply filling it with effort. When they stop filling it, the other person finally feels the space that their own behavior created. This is why some people only realize the value of an empath after the empath stops giving the same access. They miss the comfort, they miss the attention, they miss the emotional safety the empath provided. But missing comfort is not the same as understanding damage. Wanting the empath back is not the same as becoming safer for the empath. This is why the empath does not rush back just because someone feels regret. Regret may open a conversation, but it does not rebuild trust by itself. Trust needs time, trust needs consistency, trust needs humility. Trust needs behavior that stays changed even when there is no reward. Empaths know this deeply after they have been hurt. They may still hope someone grows, but they no longer use their own heart as the place where that growth must be proven. They do not want another cycle where pain leads to apology, apology leads to hope, hope leads to closeness, and closeness leads back to the same pain. So they create distance, they create new rules, they create inner boundaries that may never be spoken out loud. The other person may think the empath has changed, and in a way they have, but the change is not a loss of love. It is the return of self-respect. It is the empath learning that being good to someone should not require being careless with themselves. It is the empath learning that peace is not cruel. Distance is not hatred, silence is not revenge. Sometimes it is the only way to stop giving someone endless chances to hurt the same place. This is why when an empath comes back, they may not come back with the same heart in their hands. They may come back with wisdom. They may come back with limits. They may come back with calm eyes that no longer search for proof of love in every small apology. And if they do not come back at all, it is often because they finally understand that forgiving someone does not mean reopening the door to the version of themselves that was willing to suffer for love. What empaths never truly forgive is not simply pain. Pain exists in every human connection. People disappoint each other. People fail each other. People misunderstand each other. An empath knows this. They are not asking for perfection. They are not asking for a life without conflict. They are not asking to be loved by someone who never makes a mistake. What they cannot forget is emotional betrayal after pure trust. They cannot forget when someone saw the most open, gentle, loyal part of them and chose to exploit it. They cannot forget when their softness was treated like an easy place to take from. They cannot forget when their patience became a reason for someone to delay change. They cannot forget when their forgiving nature became a tool in someone else's hands. This is the wound that reaches the deepest part of an empath, because trust is sacred to them. They do not give it lightly, even if it may seem that way. Their kindness may be open, but their true emotional trust is something they build slowly through feeling safe. When they finally let someone into that deeper place, they are offering more than affection. They are offering belief. They are saying, I see you, I understand your pain, and I still choose to stand close. For someone to receive that kind of trust and then use it carelessly is not a small wound. It changes the way the empath sees the connection. It changes the way they see themselves. It may even change the way they see love. The empath may ask why their care was not enough to make the other person protect them. They may wonder how someone could be held with so much understanding and still choose harm. That question can stay with them for a long time, not because they want revenge, but because the mind tries to make sense of a betrayal that feels emotionally unnatural. Empaths often believe that if someone truly feels loved, they will become softer. But some people become more entitled when they are loved deeply. They take the empath's care as proof that they can push further. They mistake patience for weakness. They mistake loyalty for dependency. They mistake forgiveness for a lack of self-worth. This is what empaths never forget. They remember the moment they realized the other person knew their heart and still chose to wound it. They remember the moments when they gave honesty and received manipulation. They remember when they asked for care and were given blame. They remember when they tried to repair and were made to feel like the problem. They remember when they stayed longer than they should have because they believed in the good inside someone who kept choosing harmful behavior. This memory does not always make them bitter. Often it makes them wiser. They may still believe in love, but they no longer believe love should require emotional blindness. They may still believe in forgiveness, but they no longer believe forgiveness means pretending trust was not broken. They may still care about the person, but the care no longer overrules the truth. This is where the old version of the empath disappears. The old version may have explained everything with compassion. The old version may have kept giving chances because they felt the other person's pain. The old version may have stayed close because leaving felt cruel. But after emotional betrayal, a new version begins to rise. This version still has empathy, but it is no longer without boundaries. This version still feels deeply, but it no longer ignores its own pain to protect someone else from guilt. This version still understands, but it no longer confuses understanding with access. That is why the person who hurt them may feel like they are dealing with someone completely different. The empath is not pretending anymore. They are no longer reaching for the old connection with the same hunger. They are no longer trying to revive the warmth that was damaged by repeated betrayal. They may be polite, they may be calm, they may speak with respect, but the sacred part of them is no longer available in the same way. And that is the part people miss the most. They miss the empath's emotional presence. They miss the way the empath made them feel seen. They miss the way the empath absorbed tension, softened conflict, and gave meaning to the bond. But once the empath sees that their love was being consumed without being protected, they cannot return to innocence. They can heal, but healing does not mean becoming unaware again. They can move on, but moving on does not mean the lesson disappears. They can wish someone well, but that does not mean they want to stand close again. The deepest truth is that empaths may forgive the human weakness behind the harm, but they do not forget the choice to keep harming after the pain was known. That choice becomes the line. It tells them that their heart was not safe there. It tells them that the person had access to their softness but did not have the maturity to honor it. And when an empath accepts that truth, something final happens inside. They stop trying to make the betrayal smaller so the relationship can survive. They stop calling cruelty confusion. They stop calling neglect stress. They stop calling disrespect a bad moment. They begin to name things as they are. This is not hatred, this is clarity. And clarity changes everything. The empath may continue life with grace. They may smile again. They may love again. They may become even more peaceful than before. But the version of them that once gave trust without armor does not return to the person who taught them why armor was needed. In the end, the point of no return for an empath is not about hate. It is not about revenge. It is not about wanting someone to suffer. It is the moment they finally understand that love should not keep asking them to abandon themselves. An empath can forgive many things, but they cannot keep handing their heart to someone who keeps proving they do not know how to protect it. They may forgive the mistake. They may understand the pain behind the behavior. They may even wish the person peace from a distance. But once they see that their kindness was used, their trust was taken lightly, and their pain was ignored after it was clearly known, something inside them closes, and when that happens, they do not come back as the same person. They come back wiser, quieter, stronger, and more careful with who gets access to their soul. So if this video gave you clarity, like this video, share it with someone who needs to understand emotional boundaries, and subscribe to the channel for more calm, deep, and honest psychology videos. And before you go, comment below. What do you think empaths never truly forgive? Because sometimes the wound is not what happened. It is realizing they knew it hurt you and still did it again.